Okay, I believe I'm recording. But Buddhadasa Bhikkhu had a lot of respect for Zen, which is cool because they have a lot of similarities. But just like real Christianity, if you go down to anything to its core, it's really all about dukkha, dukkha, nirodha, if it's practiced in earnest.
Yeah, there are many people, like, I don't think it depends so much on the tradition and more the people who are teaching, if you're getting a good teaching or not. I mean, I don't want to badmouth anyone, but I feel like maybe it's just because there's different dharmas for different people and different practices for different people. But I always feel like it doesn't matter so much what the tradition is and more who the teacher is and what he teaches.
Yeah, religion is all man-made and mind-made. And so is everything, really, because people that have attachments to this anicca, dukkha, anatta, they hear something wise like dukkha, dukkha, nirodha, and remembering to look and change and to wake up and everything's okay right here, right now, and breathing and relaxing. And they can't handle the simplicity. It's almost like they're allergic to the simplicity. So they'll create uniforms. So I could say that, I'm better than this person because my uniform is more gold or something. And creating more distinctions. And we need a bigger building. We just need to start getting more money coming in this place, and bigger buildings, bigger churches. I heard a monk once say, like, oh, Zen is dying, like Theravada is where it's at. I mean, look, and he shows the camera around him. Look how much people are here. Look how much people are here. He cannot even see his own arrogance because he's focusing on how much people he has in his little temple. And I'm like thinking to myself, the cult of Maya has a whole bunch of people. It doesn't give it value. It might actually be a benefit that Zen is dying. It might be an indicator of its pureness or its true value.
Yeah,
that might be a better indication.
Yeah, I mean, regarding what you thought people think, because I was like this too when I started learning about Buddhism. I went straight into philosophy and read like the Nagarjuna and philosophers on Nagarjuna and stuff like this, like complex stuff. But the teaching in actuality is really simple, but that doesn't make it simple in a negative way. That makes it really profound, because once you understand it and once you understand the easiness and the simpleness, it shows you how profound it actually is. Like it's just because it's easy to understand. When you practice it, you'll understand how deep and how profound it is, even though it's easy to understand. But then the practice deepens it, and there's a whole other dimension when you practice it.
When you said that, it kind of reminds me of Muay Thai kickboxing. It's like, on paper, it's pretty straightforward. Jab, cross, uppercut, side punches, front kicks. I'm probably missing something, but that's about it. It's only like 7, 8 moves. But to master it, and always practicing doesn't necessarily mean you're going to master it. You have to practice the correct way, in a balanced way, and your heart has to be in it. And usually, I would even argue the people that excel in any kind of sport really are the ones who are not really doing it for the money. They may, I'm not saying they never excel, they may, but to really excel means not only doing good in the sport, but then you're having the good mind and heart too, like everything else in life. So, yeah, nobody can judge that for us. We have to be the judge of that ourselves. And it's not even really that important. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going, dude?
It's going pretty well.
It's the first time meeting you. I've seen you hang out in the Discord, and I really appreciate the stuff you post in the Discord. Yesterday you posted like the one sutra was a great sutra. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. What was your name again?
Philip.
Philip.
I'm on the
Are you
Discord as well.
Austrian?
Yes. Can you hear the accent?
Yeah, I grew up obviously in the 90s, so just a feeling of warmth and love fills me when I hear your voice, because of course it makes me think of you know who. One of my favorite people.
The Terminator.
Yeah, but also Kindergarten Cop. That was a great movie.
Yes, great movie.
Filmed in Aurora,
Classic.
Oregon, which is not far from where I live.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm up in the Pacific Northwest.
Did you ever see Running Man?
Um,
I think that is an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, if I remember correctly. Great movie.
Running Man.
Yeah.
I'm not, if I haven't, then I would be surprised to find out there's a Schwarzenegger movie I don't know.
Yeah. There's a lot of good ones. Yeah. Twins is a good one. You see Twins?
Twins, yeah. The weirdest one was Junior. That one was weird.
Yeah. It was fun, though.
It was just weird seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger pregnant.
Yeah. They were ahead of their time.
I suppose. They were ahead of their time, yes.
Yeah, he's awesome, man. I love all those 90s dudes. Steven Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Sylvester Stallone, and some others.
Bruce Willis is great too. That was always my favorite.
Bruce Willis, Bruce Lee, Brandon Lee.
Brandon Lee has one really good movie that I used to watch over and over. Have you Showdown in Little Tokyo? Have you seen that one?
Yeah, his one of his first ones, right?
I think so, with Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah, I think I've seen it. I don't know how much I liked it because I don't really remember it too much. I remember that he had that obscure movie Before the Crow. Yeah, should revisit it.
Yeah, he was kind of like the co-star in Showdown in Little Tokyo. Dolph Lundgren was more so the main character.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
But his role was still very significant. You know, he had almost the same amount of screen time, I would say.
Oh, nice. I like the Golden Child with Eddie Murphy. I believe it's called The Golden Child. It's kind of about Buddhism a little.
Is that the one where like they get a kid from Tibet, like a reincarnated lama or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great one. Highly recommend it. I love film. I don't know. Is there much good Dhamma movies? I've seen a lot of good Dhamma documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
Amongst White Clouds, that's a good one.
I really like. It's not explicitly a Buddhist movie, but even though it's called Samsara, I really like it. It's a documentary, but without a narration. It has a kind of narration, but only through what is shown, and it's really beautiful. And it's for me, it's a really good practice because it's like I love the documentaries where they're just really show you something and they open your eyes to how beautiful things can be, and you have some awe and stuff like this, and you come out of them and think, oh, everything's too beautiful. I need to pay more attention. I need to be more mindful. And
Philip.
Yeah, that's a very good documentary.
That is actually not like, it's kind of a sequel or a follow-up to the original film, which is a million times better, actually. I don't know if you've seen the original one. It's called Baraka.
Yes, I've seen both.
Maybe you like that over.
I like Samsara more because I've seen it first and then I saw the other one. So my
Maybe
love
that's
is
what
for
it is.
Samsara. Yes.
Yeah, because I saw Baraka and like I had like a total mystical experience, like a religious awakening, like halfway through the movie. Like it was great. It was like the one of the most intense experiences in my life. I remember. So maybe that's why it feels like a better movie to me, because like I saw it and when I went and saw Samsara, I didn't just watch it, you know, with
Maybe
an open
your
mind. I watched it
expectations were
with,
too high.
yeah, exactly. The expectations were too high for me to like it. I was like, you know, I think I was looking for that impact.
But it's great you say that, because it's really like when you watch those kinds of movies, it's like for me, it was like you really understand what it means that each moment is infinite. Like there's so much in just a moment. Like there's, because of the planet origination, like everything culminates in just this moment. All of what came before produces this moment, and this moment produces the next, and everything is in everything. And this movie really made me feel like that. And I probably shouldn't attach to this feeling, but it was a great feeling to have, I won't lie.
Yeah. Have you seen the image of Indra's net?
No?
Yeah, it's a concept that came about in Mahayana Buddhism a little bit to express dependent origination. And the original image, like I guess the more religious image, is like, you know, Indra is like, I guess the image is that Indra is like a spider, and like her web is like the whole cosmos. And in each intersection of the web, there's a jewel. And in each jewel, there's a reflection of every other jewel infinitely. Like when you put two mirrors in front of each other, there's infinite reflections of the mirror. But the actual natural phenomena where you can see it is in a spider web after it's rained. If you take a picture of a spider web with a high resolution camera when it has raindrops at each intersection of the web, and you zoom in, you can see a reflection of each drop in the spider web, and every drop like infinitely reflected in each. And that's like a Mahayana illustration of what you're talking about, that experience you were just talking about, that experience of like self-transcendence where everything is inside of everything all at once, sort of. Yeah, you should Google
I
after the
will look
call.
it up. That sounds great.
Yeah, after the call, Google Indra's net. The word Indra comes from, you know, Indriya, which refers to the senses in the Sanskrit and Pali traditions. And I don't know if it has anything to do with Ishwara, which is like the concept of pure consciousness in the Sanskrit tradition. But I think it's sort of interesting that the Mahayanas like really focus in on the senses as sort of like the seat of consciousness, I guess you can say. A little different in the Buddhist and Vedantic traditions. But
Yeah, thank you for the input. I will look it up.
yeah, so that's what I was picturing when you said that. Yeah, I had a similar feeling when I was watching Baraka. Like suddenly, like everything everyone's experiencing, I'm experiencing all at the same time. You know, instead of just my own experience, like the collective arising of consciousness on the planet is all experienceable right now. You know, like a full transcendence. It's amazing they were able to achieve that in that film, or at least I guess in both of those films.
Yes, I mean, It's always there. You just have to open your eyes. But this movie really makes you open your eyes just because it's so beautiful. It's easier to see those kinds of things in more beautiful things. But I think the practice is supposed to be to see it everywhere, even things that aren't as beautiful as this movie.
Yeah, there's a movie called something like Summer, Winter, Fall, Summer, Spring, or Summer, Fall, Winter, something like that. But it's a great movie. It's about this Zen master and his student, and they're kind of on this island, and the student falls in love with a girl. And I won't say any more, but it's a great movie if you ever get a chance to watch it. Very, very good cinematography. That's a nice one.
I mean, I think art is great for practice in general. Maybe that's because I'm studying art history, but it's like art can really make you see the things that are there, and I think it's an easy way to practice. There's the hard way to practice, which is every day in every circumstance, and then there's the easy way, which is having beautiful things already. And then once you seen it in the beautiful things, you can kind of see it in the other things too. It's just a way of seeing, but it's easier to start with beautiful things. At least it was easier for me at first, starting with beautiful things.
Yeah, art is awesome. I like art that's really honest. I think like when I was younger, I did art a lot. Even not so young. I would always want to impress people, you know, and be special and become something. But as I got older, then I'm like, I just want to have fun doing the art, you know? I don't really care if people like it or don't like it. I mean, if they like it, great, cool. But also, I think it comes out in the artwork too. You can tell when somebody is trying to impress somebody, as it's not the best work. I think if you create art, like those Zen masters who would do the calligraphy and stuff, it's like you have to be willing to set it on fire after you're done, you know? If you hold it too tightly, it's not great art. I think that's what Van Gogh knew too, because he's like a great Dhamma practitioner, I think. A lot of people may disagree with me, that's okay, but he actually wanted to be a priest, and I think he worked with this church early on in France, and they got mad at him because when they finally gave him a position, a kind of a high position from what I understand, he sold everything the church gave him, and then his little hut that he was living in, he gave it away to a family. And when the higher up priest came to check on Van Gogh, he was sleeping in a bed of straw, and this family moved into his house, and he was in rags and he was dirty. And the priest got pissed, of course, because can't be doing Jesus's teachings now. Just have to do the facade of his teachings, not the actual teachings. So they kicked him out right away. But then I heard later on he was influenced by some Buddhism that he came across, apparently. I think he liked the Zen Buddhists, if I remember correctly. But there's that one famous portrait he has where he has very short hair, and I think in his journals he talked about that he was trying to portray himself as like a Zen monk or something. I thought that was cool.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, he's an interesting cat. I think he got a lot of wisdom too, because he was very familiar with death at a young age. He had a twin brother. A lot of people don't know. I don't know. Well, actually, I don't know if it was a twin or they were within a couple years apart. But anyways, I believe it was a twin. But his brother died, and his brother's name was Vincent van Gogh as well. So every day, his mother would take him up to the cemetery to visit his brother's grave. So young Van Gogh would always have to stare at a headstone with his name on it and birthday, I think. imagine that. So he got that early Theravada training, visiting cemeteries and morbid, crazy shit. Maybe it works. That's why they do it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of artists, especially now, are influenced by Buddhism and Zen Buddhism, especially because I think if you make art, you can, if you create something, you're easily very attached to it because you there are so many emotions when you make art. Like you kind of want to be proud, you want to be good. There are so many things, and it can be a very painful experience too. But if you train to get less attached to the art and just make it and don't worry so much about it, like if it's good, if it will impress people and stuff like this, you are really free to explore the art you make. And I think it becomes a more wholesome practice because a lot of artists are really suffering from the art. I mean, they love their art, but they really suffer from it. And I think that's because when you're too attached to anything, it can become suffering. And I think the practice can be helpful in those kinds of situations. And I think that's why artists are open to practice. And I think art can be a good Buddhist practice because you learn to not worry so much if you practice correctly. Don't worry so much about the results, just do it, and then you're done. Then you can go on to the next thing.
Yeah, like Bob Ross would say, there's no mistakes, only happy accidents. Very Dhamma-like phrase. Don't worry, be happy.
In a sense, you know, good art is like correct Dhamma practice because, you know, like you said, good art is honest art. So it's art that's not trying to be something. It's not trying to create an image. It's not trying to achieve a status. It's not trying to gain or lose anything. It's just sort of a pure expression of that natural creativity that is inherent in nature. And nature is a conscious creative process. And the artist can experience a transcendence of self when they just sort of give into that force and stop trying to take ownership of the art, trying to make it into something or make it be something, and just sort of let it be an expression of whatever wants to be expressed. And then you know, when you have you ever, I'm trying to remember what it's called, but there's like a beautiful rock garden that I think was made in the Edo period in Japan, in Kyoto. It's a Zen rock garden, and it's very beautiful to look at. And I got to see it in person once, and when you look at it, your mind just becomes completely still and silent. And you know, the tradition in Zen art is for the work to be an expression of the state of mind that the artist is in. So the monk who created that rock garden, it's probably the name of it's going to come to me randomly. He expressed his enlightenment, you know, he expressed his awakening in that sculpture, I guess you can call it. So when you look at it, you're looking at like a perfect mirror of an awakened mind, you know. And I think all good art is like that. It's not always expressing an awakening, but it's expressing an honest burgeoning forth of creativity that doesn't belong to the artist necessarily.
But viewing it is practice too, because it doesn't matter how good it is. When you're like here and there with your thoughts, when there's like the monkey jumping around, you really don't you don't respond to art. Like when you really want to respond to art, you have to be calm, or maybe you're excited, or you just have to be mindful and try to feel the painting or whatever art you're looking at, and try to see what resonates, what doesn't. And you need to be open to this experience. But if you're not paying attention, if you're not mindful and your mind is jumping around, you won't see the art, you will just see your own mind. And that's maybe helpful too. That's not a bad thing necessarily, but art is good practice in every sense, I think.
Yeah, it's like the doorway to nibbana, because people like it so much because they get out of their mind and they're at a museum and they're just taking a look at this beautiful painting, and they're with the painting in the moment. They're here like this now, and it's interesting. Kind of reminds me of like the shaman in old tribes. They would help. They're always kind of crazy, and they would help heal the tribe through their visions. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think people really appreciate it when people love to watch TV, and everyone watches TV, or everyone is on their phone, and people say this is bad, and this may very well be bad because there's so many ads and bad influences and stuff that causes suffering. But a lot of these things, when you scroll through TikTok or something, what you really like about it is that your mind is just empty. You don't think much. It's just this thing, then the next thing. And it's just everything is gone, gone, gone. And I think people attach to that and not so much, because when you go on TikTok or something like this on social media, most of the time you don't remember anything once you get off it. And it's like your mind was just empty, and because you don't remember anything, you don't really interact with it. It's just gone. Maybe the feelings remain, but the thoughts are just gone.
My old teacher, one of my teachers, Bob Adamson, he would always quote, I think it was Shakespeare. He would say, there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And it reminds me of social media and technology, how we like scrolling and stuff like that. It's like, is it bad? Is it good? It doesn't really matter, Like when chess first came out back in the day, they used to, when it became very popular, they used to say to people, it's going to rot your brain, chess, And now we admire it. Oh, they're so intelligent. They're so amazing, these chess players. We love it, So what's good? What's bad, And nowadays you see it with people's attachments to gender identity and political identity, It shows you how malleable these, and how you can't really rely on these ideas. This is a man, this is a woman. We thought that was concrete and stone. And it goes in waves too. There's ancient American Indian tribes who wouldn't bat an eye at a man being kind of like a woman, kind of like a man. They were used to that. Some tribes, not all tribes. And in India, they already did all that. You know what I mean? This is old stuff to them. But in America, it's like this new thing coming back, and maybe it'll go away one day. Maybe it'll come back. But it shows you what you think to be concrete, real with your ideas. It's just an illusion. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it a man? Is it a woman? It's all illusion. It's all superstition. Money, does it have value? It's superstition. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, That's what you said earlier before Michael joined us. It really is a simple kind of practice. It's not difficult to understand. It's like, okay, when you say to someone, okay, for example, Buddhism as a religion, okay, Buddhism, you can't define it in one sentence or anything because there are so many lineages and schools and stuff like this. It's really diverse and you can't break it down very simply. You can't say this is good, this is bad, because it's so much and people generally will just agree with that. And it's like, okay, but all of what we say and what we do is kind of a characterization, but not the real thing. And people will generally agree with that. And it's simple, like it's not difficult to understand. But when you put it in practice, it becomes profound and it changes things. And it's not just about knowing it; it's really about putting it into practice. And then things will change, and then one can see how profound it is. But on the onset, it's very simple, and I think people are like, okay, this is too simple. It can't be that simple. I was like this too. That no, this is too simple. I need something I don't understand. When in reality, it's easy to understand. It's just have to put it in practice.
Yeah, letting go of wanting to understand something, letting go of getting it right, letting go of a feeling of, do I grasp this? Is this it? It's more of a lightness. It's just letting go process. It's not a gaining process. Because and it's so subtle. The mind is so tricky, even with the Dhamma practice. Now I have the right Dhamma view. Everybody else has the wrong Dhamma view. This is the real practice. They're the bullshit. The Mahayana, the Theravadins, who's better, who's worse, it's so silly.
When the mind truly clarifies and it just experiences reality, everything looks like a box, like Buddhism looks like a tiny little box. And when you listen to Buddhists talk to each other, it just sounds like a bunch of people in a bunch of tiny little boxes arguing about their box and other boxes,
Not always.
Not always, but because where I'm at right now with my understanding is that you can't be anything other than what you are. It's impossible. It's illogical. We're always already exactly what we are. Right now, Dhammadas, Philip, Michael, anyone watching this, we're always already exactly what we are. We are ultimately real. And the mind is just filled with stories. And the mind and the body, their activities, but the mind has this constant hunger to consume. The senses have a constant hunger to consume. If you sit in a quiet room, you can, sort of fall back into awareness and watch the body, crave movement. You can watch the mind crave after ideas and stories. You can watch the eyes searching around the room for something to feed on. You could watch the ears searching around the room for something to listen to. And Buddhism is just something else that we can give the mind to feed on, but it's designed differently. It's designed to bring that hunger to an extinction, so it serves that purpose. It gives you a bunch of things to create in the mind, to lust after, jhanas and stream entries and sakadagamis and all of these things, nibbana, even though
Pity
it's telling you right
parties.
from the beginning. Yeah, all of these things. I mean,
Pity parties are a big one.
And then people get into this feeding frenzy within it. They get into this feeding frenzy. Oh, you can't do this until you know this, and you can't be this until you do that, and you can't do this until you can't do da. But always already the reality is here present, that you are what you are and you can't be anything other than what you are. The the mind just hasn't come to rest. It hasn't come to its own destruction, you know, essentially. The mind hasn't come to its own extinction. Because, you know, ultimately you're not the body and you're not the mind and you're not the senses.
But you're also not those things. You're also the body and the mind. It's like, okay, you are those things, but you're also not them. It's
the common illustration that I like to use is one is you could think of the mind and the body as like waves on a lake, you know, like the wave is not the lake itself, but it's also made up of the lake, you know. But sort of the experience of that understanding is different, you know. It's like the mind and the body just become sort of this lightness, like this light activity that's experienced in a very non-personal way. And then, you know, everything just sort of becomes a storyline, you know. Even Buddhism itself becomes a storyline. But like I said, the storyline of Buddhism is a story that's meant to come to its own extinction. It's not meant to lead to like some big brand new thing for the mind to hold on. It's just meant to tire out all of those streams of hunger that I mentioned, that the body has, that the mind has, that the senses have. And when they tire of trying to find something to consume and just sort of give up being hungry, then you can rest as you are. But, you know, you can rest as you are right now, you know. You can sort of just give it all up and just let things be as they are, let yourself be as you are, you know, no matter what perspective you look at it from, whether you look at it from a naturalistic, physicalist perspective or an idealist perspective where, you know, the universe is made up of nothing but consciousness. Either way, like nothing can be separate from everything, you know. And so what are we looking for? You know, it's like,
that's the question.
That's the question, you know.
What do we want? We want
it's just
more.
the end of looking that we're
more of everything.
looking for.
like that old Chris Rock joke. What do women want? He's like, everything. They want everything. But that's people, you know. People want everything. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, you're just, because I forgot where I saw it or where I read it, but there was someone who said like, okay, they went to these Buddhist teachers and stuff like this, and all they had was reality, and then he became a Muslim, I think, or something like that. But it's like, yeah, all you get is reality, and that is more than enough. Like you just see, when you practice, you just can see what is right in front of you, and that's reality. And reality is already endless because everything is connected. There's no separation when you practice. There's no nothing. Like a fun practice I like to do sometimes, and it doesn't always work, but sometimes it does. It's like, okay, art is great and all that stuff. But when we see art, it's like, oh, the colors are great. I really love the colors. I really love this composition and stuff like this. But you can also go into the supermarket. Like everyone has a supermarket near them, and just try to practice. Let go of I need this, I need that, I want this, I want that. Just appreciate all the colors. How great are the colors? How great are the colors? Everything is so colorful.
The flowers.
All these people, yeah. And it's like that's just a supermarket. Like, and a supermarket is a very mundane thing. Nobody really loves the supermarket and stuff like this. But when you see it for what it is, all the colors, all the people, all the
it's gorgeous,
and even when you see the promises of the things that people want, like, because in those promises of a product, there's already the feeling that you get out of it. But you already have the feeling. You don't need the product. You already know what it feels, what you think it feels like to have it. And that's already what you want, because you already feel it. If you didn't feel what you thought the product would make you feel like, you wouldn't need the product in the first place. But since you already feel it, you don't need anything. You already have it. You already feel it. And that's enough. And once you see those things and the colors and all the things that the products and stuff like this you can resonate with without buying them, without needing them, without needing to possess them. It's really great, and it's a fun way to practice. It doesn't always work for me, but it's really a fun way to practice.
Absolutely. It's a good time to practice at a supermarket, because I don't know about you guys, but my body sometimes gets a little anxious when I'm going into supermarkets. I don't know why, just maybe because I'm around people or whatever. But I noticed that too, you know, and it's a nice little Zen bell at the temple reminding me that everything's okay. I don't need to be anxious. It's just a passing chemical in the body. It won't last. And then I'm calming down, you know, then my mind becomes cool. And yeah, not just supermarkets, but yeah, everywhere, every moment is a supermarket, moment by moment. Even now, can we experience those feelings of the supermarket with these little boxes on our phones or computers or whatever we're looking at? Can we be satisfied seeing the beauty in this moment? You know, everything is like the supermarket. Every moment, it's like this.
Mm-hmm.
There's beautiful things, there's ugly things, and good things and evil things, but we gotta go beyond those concepts and wake up. Boom. Wake up right here, right now. And is it good enough? Go ahead, buddy.
No, go ahead. I thought you were
No.
finished.
I am.
I was going to say that it's, like you said, it's subtle, but it's the thing that requires the least amount of effort and no maintenance at all. It's just I think that the most consistent theme in the suttas is the observation or perception or contemplation of anicca, is because when you're continuously observing sort of the dynamic aspect of reality, the only thing that can be aware of the movement is the still point, right? I mean, you can't observe movement from within movement. If you're on the merry-go-round, the horses don't look like they're moving, but if you're standing on the ground, you can see the horses spin around in circles. So it's this continuity of observing.
It's all relative.
This dynamic movement, and that orients your experience in the part that's not moving, you know, the silent, still, unmoving aspect of experience. And it's actually the quality that requires no maintenance. It can't suffer, it can't be affected, it can't change. And it's just constantly overlooked because we're conditioned to go out to, you know, the dynamic aspects of experience, the changing aspects of experience, and becoming infatuated with them. And then when we grab onto them, we suffer as they change. But this silent, still, aware, empty, aware quality that's always already who and what we are is discernible always. And it's really that perception of anicca is sort of like a crutch, I guess you can say, that situates your experience in that still point. Ajahn Buddhadasa called it the cool point in the blasting furnace. You know, sometimes we call it silence, sometimes we call it stillness, sometimes we call it coolness, sometimes we call it the unconditioned, the deathless, the unarisen, the unbounded. You know, but it's just that quality that is the background of the background. You know, it's what gives form and meaning to everything that is dynamic. Like if you imagine like a blank canvas, and you draw that Zen circle on the blank canvas. At the moment the circle completes itself, the dual concepts of inside and out co-arise at the moment that circle is completed. And that's what our attention is always on. It's always on the object and the dual concepts of inside and out, me and not me, that are relational. And those are the aspects of reality that are conditioned and impermanent. But the blank canvas, the sort of background knowingness of experience that's always present, it's not something that arises and passes. It's what knows arising and passing. And you can get at that through meditation, but you can also get at it logically, because culturally we're conditioned to feel that our knowingness, our experiencing, is sort of like an after effect of something that comes prior to or outside of experience, something unconscious and dead. But that can only be understood as a concept in a conscious mind anyway. So if there's no thing or one or being experiencing consciousness, then even the persistence of some unconscious stuff, it loses all its meaning anyway. So from an experiential point of view, it's the only quality that really matters. It's that stable knowingness that you can kind of sit back and see all that dynamic change from.
I'm not so sure if I got that, to be honest, but
We have to be careful that we don't over intellectualize it, breathing and relaxing.
What remains with me from this is like, how great is it to be still? How great is it to not need anything? How great is that, really, when
everything's okay.
Everything is okay. You don't need anything. You can go into the supermarket and just not need anything. And how freeing is that? All those attachments and things that get to you and you don't see clearly, and then you can just be still and realize, oh, you don't need any of those things. You already, yeah.
It's like some children, when they get a new toy or they go to a carnival, they'll come and tell you about the carnival. Oh, Dad, you should have saw it. There was a merry-go-round and a clown, and the sunlight was glistening off the clown's face, and then we had candy, and then I threw up, and then but the reality is, the child's so happy, and that's wonderful. But don't even get attached to those things that may appear more wholesome, because they don't last. That's not the reality. The reality is, yeah, you had a good time, and that's okay. But you get too attached to it. You get very philosophical. We get very caught up still in here. We get away from the truth that everything's all right. Breathing and relaxing. Nibbana is not mystical. A lot of people nowadays, I notice, are having a lot of tendencies to go back toward mundane teaching of magical dragons and all these things and karma machines. They want more. That's why they do it. And when we get excited even about a Dhamma, it's great, but we have to see what it is. You're getting excited about the finger. Ajahn Sumedho, he had a great point when he gave this talk. He was saying, the Dhamma practice is like if you're in prison and the Buddha hands you a key. And he says, hey, man, if you open that lock over there, you'll be free. But then the inmate takes the key and he hangs it on the wall and he starts worshiping it. And he starts telling his other companions, like, oh, you see this key, you have to turn it to the left and not to the right. You see, it's very special. And then years go by and the key's still hanging there. And he's still excited about the key. And it's wonderful. But it does nothing if we're not remembering that everything's okay right here. If we're not opening it, remember, look, and change, then forget about that key. You don't have to worship it. You have to get so caught up in it.
Yeah, and I wonder how you are doing those things, because like okay, when I'm feeling down, for example, I can calm myself by being like, okay, this is all right and stuff like this. But I still want to feel better, you know what I mean? Even though I think correct practice would be like, okay, I'm already well enough. I don't need to feel better. I just need to watch what it is like, and that's enough. And I'm wondering, how do you deal with the want of feeling better when you feel down?
You just put it down. You put down the feeling, you put down the wanting to feel better, you know. You just
Yeah,
let it be as it is.
but sometimes it's almost like an energy level. Like I'm not saying like you're being deflated, you know, and it doesn't feel. I mean, if you remember to practice, it doesn't feel bad, but it also doesn't feel good, and I still kind of want to feel better, even though I don't need to feel better and everything's all right. I'm wondering how, but I guess just with practice as well, right? Just if this thought comes up, if this
Just go back to the
want comes up,
breath.
yeah.
Go back
right.
to the breath, and those desires will subside eventually. It won't feel like it right away, but people give up too early. They don't give the right amount of effort. They're lazy. But you have the right amount of effort, and the right amount of effort is just enough until that feeling subsides of desire, of dukkha. You know, like walking through the fields with dog shit. It doesn't take much discipline or much effort, but it requires a little effort. How much effort? Just the right amount of effort to turn your body and walk around this shit. So you feel desire that you're bored, you're not comfortable with these feelings. You want to feel good, right? You want to chase good things and fun things and exciting, entertaining things, whatever. And that doesn't last, that feeling. In the moment, it seems like it will last an eternity. It feels like that's the embodiment of who we are, but it's a trick of the mind, nothing more. Chemicals in the brain. And they pass. Nobody stays angry forever. Usually nobody stays angry for more than a minute or two. But when you're angry, it sure doesn't feel like that, does it? It feels like I'm never going to be happy. I'm never going to not be angry.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I shouldn't think so much about the past, but sometimes it's like, okay, I feel down, so I practice. And then I get through it and it's done, and I feel satisfied again and I feel all right again. But I
That's a
already,
samsaric practice, though. From my view, you know, that's what I was kind of trying to get at earlier. It's difficult to explain, but once you discern it, you can't forget it, because there's always a quality. There's always a quality within an experience that is quiet, that is still, that is unconditioned, that is unaffected by
no,
what's happening in the body and the mind.
that's not what I mean. I think I have this, I'm practicing, but then I'm through with this. I was calm and I watched myself and I did the practice, but then I don't know, something happens and it's like, I'm like, okay, this was practice, but it was exhausting practice. And now it's easy practice. And it feels all right. It's still practice and it's still not exactly suffering, but an exhaustion. Like you're exhausted even though you practiced. And then you come out of that how do you say, when the thing you do before you get exhausted, you strained yourself and you don't even realize it. You're practicing and practicing, and then you come out of it. and then you still do the practice, like the practice hasn't changed, but you're relieved, even though it was not bad, but it was exhausting beforehand. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, and forgive me if I'm not able to convey this or if it's not helpful, but when you're describing that experience, you're heavily identified with like the mind and the mental states, the emotional states, and you're using mindfulness as a way of changing the mental states or changing your perspective on the mental states. But what I'm suggesting is that sort of you can change where you stand in your experience, so to speak. That there's always already a quality of experience that is quiet, that is still, that is unmoved by anything that's happening in the body and the mind. And the way that I've been communicating this is that there's the sky, right, the atmosphere around the earth. You could think of that as, I'm just going to call it, just the unconditioned awareness that knows experience. And within the sky, there are various types of clouds. There are beautiful, fluffy white clouds, and we can call those like clouds happiness. And then there's like heavy dark clouds that are filled with electric charge, and we can call that anxiety. We can call that depression. And there's a type of practice that is within the clouds, trying to change the clouds, or within the clouds and enduring the clouds as they change until they pass away and you're back into that sky of awareness. But there's another way of practicing where you always remain, you always remain the sky. And no matter what clouds come together and break apart, you always remain the sky. So it doesn't matter, because you're never in or with the clouds, as the Buddha says in the Bahiya Sutta, when he tells Bahiya, if in the scene there's only the scene and so forth, then you'll not be in it or with it, right? That's what he's talking about. And then in Majjhima Nikaya 64, he talks about from even from the first jhana, which is just a mind that is clear, right? If you can discern the relinquishing of all, he calls it the relinquishing of all acquisitions, the stilling of all formations, nibbana. If you can discern this unconditioned element, or the deathless element, he calls it, sounds fancy. It's not fancy at all. It's the most ordinary aspect of experience. It's the aspect of our experience that we're always overlooking. It's the background of the background. Just like the clouds, the various clouds are in the atmosphere, but they're also made of the atmosphere, right? The atmosphere is completely unaffected by whatever clouds arise and pass. And from our normal perspective, where we're fully identified with the changing states of the body and the mind, it's like a child standing on the ground looking up at the sky. And in a sort of, let's say, a bored state of mind or a sad state of mind, it's like the sky is completely covered in gray clouds. And then if that mental state breaks apart for a second, like the clouds break apart and you could see the blue sky beyond the gray clouds, to a child who doesn't know better, that looks like the appearance of a blue cloud. But it's actually just the revelation of the sky that's always already there. And so if you can get to the point where you understand with full confidence that this blue sky, this full background context of experience, that is the experience of non-identification, is always already the context of this experience that we're having right now, then you know that that blue sky is always already present, and no matter what arises and passes within experience, whether it's a happy state of mind or a sad state of mind or a depressed state of mind, whatever's afflicting the mind, it's always seen as the changing states of the mind. In fact, the changing states are what we call the mind. But there's always this broader context of of unaffectable awareness that I'm using here in the simile of the sky, right? That knows it. And if you can rest as that whenever you remember to, more and more and more, then it doesn't matter what the dynamic states of the mind are, you know. And the mind begins to become less dynamic over time because you're not fueling it by trying to change it. Because every time you give attention to a mental state, you're fueling it, you're giving it energy. And every time you try to change a mental state, you're strengthening the sense of self, which is that controller within experience. But if you can discern that unaffectable presence of awareness that is always the background of the background, then you just let things rise and pass and be as they are. They run out of fuel eventually, and your experience starts to become overwhelmed and swallowed up by this very quiet, very still sense of presence that is always already what we are. You know, we're never not that. We just not, our attention is not focused in that direction. It's focused in the other direction.
And sometimes our energy levels of the body go up and down. Sometimes our practice is a little smoother than other moments. Maybe a little bit more effort is required in some moments to change, you know? Can you be okay with that? Can you be okay with it's not always going to be like it was yesterday, you know? Changes a little bit, you know? But that won't last, you know?
Yeah, it's just the strange thing to me is that you or that I watch this state, and it's all right. Like, I'm not suffering. Even it may be a bad state, but it may not even be a bad state. So I think sometimes I practice well, but you continue to practice, and you practice, and then suddenly you get relieved, like as if the practice before was exhausting, even though it didn't feel like that when I practiced. But there's a moment of, okay, I am feeling relieved now, even though it didn't feel like this before. And I'm wondering if what that is. Like,
That's the
does it
appearance of the
mean
blue cloud.
We feel
the
relief,
analogy.
and then we want that relief to last. And we get sad when that relief doesn't last.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of not what I mean. What I mean is that you almost don't realize that you're exhausted, and then suddenly you realize how exhausted you were. And I feel like if I'm watching myself, I should notice this exhaustion and already do something beforehand so that I can stop being exhausted.
The best thing you can do is stop. That's always the best thing you can do, because there's nothing that you need to do to be what you already are. And, you know, we come to the Dhamma when we're exhausted with what's called materialism, with pursuing objects for our happiness. And then we go to the Dhamma, and then we exhaust ourselves with practices and precepts and goals and concepts. And then when we gain the freedom when we become exhausted with all of that. because I mean, if you completely give up, if you completely utterly give up, which is so hard to do, honestly, if you just completely just give up because it's so freaking
It's
exhausting,
easy.
you want to throw up. Yeah, because all the efforting, you know, like, but if you can truly get the mind to see that to the point where it just wants to give up and it fully gives up, then all that's left is what's always already been there, you know, and you're just left without any burdens. It's like you've been walking around carrying, stuff in your hands and on your back and on your head and on your chest your whole life. And then we start being convinced to put things down by all these promises, right? In whatever tradition. And then eventually we've put everything down, and then we're not given anything, because there was never anything to be given to us. There was never anything to get. But what we have then is this lightness of no longer carrying any burdens, So that's what I mean when I say the practice is just meant to exhaust our seeking until the energy of seeking comes to its own destruction, and then you just rest as what you always already were.
Yeah, and if you hang on to the past of, I was exhausted, now I'm not, it was like this and now it's like this, it's always going to change. You just have to let go of all this stuff and breathe and relax. And then the puzzle starts going, and the chasing mind and the figuring out mind and the getting it right mind goes, who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday I felt like this. One moment I felt like this. The other moment I felt like this. Yeah, that's the nature of reality. The mind, the body, it feels different shit every other moment. Can you be okay with that?
Yeah, I think what I really need to give up in this case is that I want to do it better, but I really don't need to do it better. I can just, it's all right.
Just do it average. Get a D instead of trying to get an A+. Can you be okay? Even if you get an F, that's okay too.
A best in grade is okay, sure. I can
That's okay.
that.
And that's funny I brought up grades, because that's the Western mindset, isn't it? Oh, it was fine this day, but now it has to be an A+ this day. I got a C+ this day. Now I got it's the same bad sankharas, the same bad habits. Oh, I have to get it a certain way, or else I'm not valuable, or else I'm not good enough, or else I always have to have the chasing mind. The false assumption and the scourge of mankind is the idea that we always need to be somewhere that we're not. We always need to get something that we don't have. The Buddha told us plain and simple. Why is there dissatisfaction? Because you want something you don't have. You want things to be a certain way that they're not. My practice is like this. I wish it was like this. Give up that feeling. Who gives a fuck what your practice is like? It's okay. You don't need to be enlightened.
I see that now. I think I was trying to improve something that doesn't need to.
You're perfect already. You don't got to improve nothing.
Yeah.
You're a Buddha already. But you start playing the game with the mind, you start dancing with the devil,
true. Yeah.
And it throws you off.
Yeah, that's true.
Another reason that giving up is apparently so difficult is because the I or the you that we normally identify as or for our whole lives is that dissatisfaction itself. We are that dissatisfaction. That's what we think we are. When that dissatisfaction starts to come to an end, it feels like we're disappearing, because that is the false self, that is the fabricated self. It's funny because, the good news, Buddhism, sometimes doesn't appear to speak in positive terms, but the real good news about dependent origination is that the very thing that's fabricated the most, that teaching is focused on, the very thing that is fabricated is suffering itself, right? Like, what does the whole chain of dependent origination teach us? Is that suffering itself is a fabrication that we're unconsciously doing, So that's why I say, like, stopping is always the best option. If you can just fully stop and fully give up. And the reason, like Dhammadasa correctly points out, relaxing and breathing, the reason that works so much is because, it's just such a like a, for lack of a better word, primitive thing to do, to just relax and breathe, that it helps the mind to just let go of everything that it doesn't need to be doing. I gotta go check on my kids.
Oh, I know what that's like. I've given many talks and had my children interrupt us. But that's okay.
Yeah.
It teaches you patience. Teaches you to be okay with things not going the way you want.
Yes.
Well, on that note, buddy, I better get going. But it was nice
All right.
talking with you. I hope we helped with your little conundrum.
Yes, it wasn't so bad. I think I see it now. It's just, I don't know. It's not really an issue. It's not really an issue that plagues me. It's just
Right, right.
I was wondering about that.
See that
Of
just
how
right
you
there,
deal
just
with
right
that.
there, what you said, that's the Noble Eightfold Path. You're taking something that may or may not have been an issue and you tell yourself, hey, actually, it's maybe not a big deal.
Yeah.
That's changing it.
It's not a big deal.
Everything's
It was just,
okay right
yeah.
now. Yeah. But that's great. Otherwise, we have nothing to talk about. We just sit in silence. So I love when people come up and talk about anything. So, anyways,
Okay. Have a good one.
you're
Bye.
awesome, dude. Sorry, Michael. Goodbye, Michael. We love you. Take it easy. Bye, dudes.